It started like any other evening in Burbank, the faint hum of engines from a nearby studio lot, the distant glow of streetlights reflecting off polished chrome. But at 6:32 p.m., that calm shattered. A sharp explosion echoed across the industrial block that housed one of the most famous garages in America. Within moments, smoke poured from the vents of Jay Leno's private collection, and the wail of sirens pierced the air. Dispatch audio crackled through the static. Units respond to North Hollywood Way. Possible explosion. Structure involved. Occupant trapped inside. Neighbors stepped out into the haze, staring in disbelief. Jay's garage, his sanctuary, the cathedral of engines that defined his life, was burning. Security cameras caught the first plumes of smoke, rising like ghosts above the massive steel doors marked Big Dog Garage. Inside, it wasn't a film shoot or a restoration reveal. It was chaos. One neighbor later recalled, "We thought it was another one of his engine tests until the alarm started blaring." As fire units closed in, witnesses reported hearing someone shout for help, the voice unmistakable. It was Jay himself. His longtime friend and mechanic had already dragged him outside, his clothes singed, his face and hands blackened. By the time first responders arrived, Jay Leno, the comedian who had spent decades making America laugh, lay on the pavement, conscious but injured, blinking through the smoke. Officers surrounded the scene, unsure what had happened. Was it sabotage? A freak accident? Or something mechanical gone horribly wrong? Reporters would soon flood the streets. Fans would panic. Rumors would spiral. But at that moment, the only thing that mattered was the man who had dedicated his life to preserving automotive history, now fighting for his own survival. And as paramedics lifted him into the ambulance, one firefighter glanced back toward the burning doors and muttered, "Whatever's in there, it almost killed him." The world had seen Jay Leno's garage as a dream. That night, it became a nightmare, and what rescuers found inside would tell a story no one was ready to hear. For decades, Jay Leno's garage had been more than a workspace. It was a monument to American craftsmanship, a living museum built by a man obsessed with motion. Inside its walls sat a mechanical empire. Over 180 cars and 160 motorcycles, each one meticulously restored, cataloged, and often hand-driven by Jay himself. From steam engines that hissed like dragons to jet-powered prototypes that could melt asphalt, every machine represented a chapter in his lifelong love affair with speed. Visitors described it like stepping inside history. The air always smelled of oil, leather, and gasoline. The perfume of invention. Along the walls hung tools older than most of his crew, blueprints dating back a century, and plaques from shows that crowned him one of the greatest collectors alive. But beneath the order was chaos waiting to happen. Jay's passion for experimentation often led him into danger. He loved the unpredictable, the kind of machinery that hissed, leaked, and demanded respect. His pride and joy, the early white steam car, used volatile fuels, open flames, and pressurized systems that could explode if handled wrong. Friends joked that the garage wasn't just a collection. It was a ticking time capsule of mechanical risk. By late 2022, Leno's empire had grown beyond his wildest dreams. His TV show, Jay Leno's Garage, was a hit. His workshop ran like clockwork, but in a place where fire was a constant companion. Sparks flying, engines roaring, flames lit for demonstrations. All it took was one mistake. And on November 12th, 2022, that mistake arrived. Narrator: in a kingdom of machines, even the king isn't immune to danger. And what began as a simple day of tinkering was about to become a fight for survival. The air smelled faintly of fuel. Jay laughed with his mechanic. And somewhere in the shadows, a hiss began to build. Soft at first, then deadly. It was supposed to be routine. Jay Leno had performed the same procedure hundreds of times before. A quick check of the 1907 white steam car, one of his favorite relics. The car was powered by a primitive mix of gasoline vapors, water, and fire. An unpredictable combination that fascinated him. That afternoon, he and his trusted mechanic, Dave Killicky, rolled the vehicle into position. The goal was simple: clean a clogged fuel line, light the pilot, and prepare the steam system for a test run. It was the kind of maintenance Jay could do blindfolded. The security log showed laughter echoing in the background, a typical Saturday in the garage. Jay had always said, "Old cars keep you humble. They bite back if you stop respecting them." Then, without warning, a faint hiss filled the air. A jet of gasoline mist sprayed upward from a cracked fitting. In an instant, vapor met flame. And everything exploded into chaos. The flash was so bright it triggered motion sensors across the compound. Jay never had time to react. The fire engulfed his face and chest, burning through his shirt before he even hit the floor. Dave lunged forward, tackling him, beating the flames with a shop rag. The room filled with black smoke as alarms screamed. Metal pinged. Tires burst. Somewhere, an engine backfired. A mechanical death rattle echoing through the haze. Jay later recalled, "I didn't even feel the burn, just the sound, like the world inhaled and exhaled fire." Neighbors reported hearing the blast half a block away. Within minutes, 911 was flooded with calls. And as Dave dragged Jay toward the open air, the comedian, half conscious and scorched, managed to mumble through the smoke, "Don't let the cars burn." It wasn't fame or fortune he thought about. It was the machines. Inside the sprawling complex, chaos gave way to silence. The eerie kind that follows catastrophe. Flames danced across polished hoods, licking at the very cars Jay had spent decades preserving. The blast had ignited not just one corner, but multiple bays, where fuel lines and vintage oils turned every spark into a threat. Security footage later recovered showed the moment the fireball erupted. A blinding flash, a wall of flame, then thick smoke swallowing the camera's lens. Dave Killicky, his arms blistered from the rescue, yelled for help as he dragged Jay clear of the garage. "We need an ambulance now. He's burned bad," he shouted into the phone. From the street, it looked apocalyptic. Smoke billowing through the vents, sirens closing in from every direction. Neighbors saw firefighters kicking down side doors, bracing for a larger explosion. Inside, molten metal dripped from overhead racks. The temperature soared past 400 degrees. One firefighter later said, "You could smell burning rubber and motor oil for blocks." By the time paramedics reached Jay, his clothes had melted into his skin. He was still conscious, even joking weakly to one of the medics, "Hey, careful with that stretcher. It's vintage." But behind the humor was agony. His face, neck, and hands bore deep second and third-degree burns. In just 30 seconds, the sanctuary that housed a century of automotive history had become a furnace. And while the world saw headlines about a garage fire, what truly happened inside those walls was far more terrifying. A moment when genius, danger, and obsession collided. Jay Leno's passion had always defined him. That night, it nearly consumed him. Within minutes, the quiet streets around North Hollywood Way turned into a sea of flashing red and blue. Burbank fire and police units arrived at 6:36 p.m., expecting a simple mechanical fire. But the moment they stepped out of their vehicles, they realized it was something else entirely. The heat radiated from the metal walls of Jay Leno's garage like an open oven. Smoke poured from the vents, thick and dark, carrying the bitter scent of gasoline and scorched rubber. Firefighters forced open the side entrance, moving cautiously, fearing a second explosion. Steam cars, jet turbines, and experimental engines lined the bays, each one a potential bomb. A crew member shouted, "Watch the tanks, they're full." When paramedics reached the inner yard, they found Jay Leno sitting upright on the pavement. His face blackened, his hands trembling. His mechanic, Dave Killicky, was kneeling beside him, still shaking from the adrenaline. "He's burned bad," he told the EMTs, his voice breaking. Despite the agony, Jay was still cracking jokes. Witnesses remember him muttering, "Don't park that ambulance too close. It leaks oil worse than my Packard." Even half-conscious, he was trying to calm everyone else down. First responders quickly realized the gravity of his injuries. His face and chest had severe burns. His left hand was raw and blistered. They administered oxygen and wrapped him in sterile gauze before rushing him toward the waiting ambulance. As they carried him past the garage doors, Jay turned his head slightly and whispered, "Save the cars." A firefighter later said, "That's when we knew. This wasn't just a fire to him. It was his life burning in there." By 6:45 p.m., the flames were under control. By 7 o'clock, the man who spent decades protecting machines was on his way to the hospital. And the machines were left behind, silent and smoking. Jay was rushed to the Grossman Burn Center in Los Angeles, one of the nation's top facilities for burn trauma. Doctors quickly assessed his condition. Third-degree burns to nearly 7% of his body, including his face, chest, and both hands. The next 24 hours would determine how much permanent damage he'd face. Hospital staff later described his calmness as almost surreal. Even through pain and morphine, he remained polite, joking with nurses, thanking doctors, asking about their cars. He'd ask, "What do you drive?" in the middle of wound dressing, one nurse said. That's Jay, always thinking about engines. His wife, Mavis, never left his side. She sat quietly as surgeons performed skin grafts, using donor tissue from other areas of his body to repair burned skin. Jay underwent 2 major surgeries and hyperbaric oxygen therapy, a specialized treatment to speed healing and reduce scarring. Behind closed doors, doctors marveled at his endurance. He was incredibly lucky, one surgeon said. A few more seconds of exposure, and it would have been catastrophic. Outside the hospital, fans gathered, leaving letters and model cars on the sidewalk. Late-night hosts and fellow comedians sent messages of support, but Jay downplayed the attention. When a nurse warned him to avoid stress, he quipped, "I hosted The Tonight Show for 20 years. I can handle a little fire." Even in recovery, he refused self-pity. "It's just skin," he told friends. "I've got more where that came from." 10 days later, doctors cleared him to go home. And where did he go first? Back to the garage. While Jay recovered, fire marshals and police investigators combed through the wreckage of his Burbank garage. What they found confirmed everyone's fears and Jay's own guilt. The source of the explosion was traced to a gasoline leak from the 1907 White steam car's fuel line. A hairline crack had released vapor into the air, and when the pilot flame ignited, it created an instant fireball. The report listed the incident as an industrial accident, non-criminal, but it carried an implicit warning. Age, pressure, and open flames are a deadly mix. Investigators noted that the garage's advanced ventilation system had slowed the spread of the fire, preventing total destruction. Still, they flagged one major concern: aging fuel systems on several of Jay's antique cars. Some of his collection, though perfectly preserved, used original 100-year-old materials prone to corrosion and leaks. When Jay was told the findings, his reaction was quiet. "That's on me," he admitted. "These old machines, they don't forgive mistakes." Publicly, he downplayed the event as a mechanical hiccup. Privately, he told friends it shook him more than anything since his Tonight Show days. Fans wanted someone to blame: the garage staff, the city, Discovery Channel. But the truth was simple. There was no villain, only curiosity, combustion, and a man who loved danger just a little too much. As one firefighter put it best, Jay Leno didn't nearly die because of a fire. He nearly died because he can't stop touching history. And the question everyone began asking was, would this finally make him stop? They were about to get their answer, and it wasn't the one they expected. Most people would have walked away after something like that. But Jay Leno isn't most people. Just 6 weeks after the explosion, bandages still covering parts of his hands, he was back on stage doing stand-up, smiling through the pain. When reporters asked why, he simply said, "I got burned doing what I love." That's fair. To Jay, quitting would have meant letting the fire win. So he returned to the one place that nearly took his life: the garage. Friends begged him to take it slow. But within days, he was back under the hood, sleeves rolled up, grease on his hands. "If I stop working on engines," he told one mechanic, "that's when I really get rusty." But things had changed. The smell of fuel now triggered flashes of that night. The sound of the hiss, the sudden heat. Still, he faced it head on. He replaced every old line and fitting himself, learning from the same mistake that almost killed him. His crew began calling him the Iron Man of Burbank. He also started a quiet campaign for garage safety awareness, urging collectors to modernize old systems. "You can love the past," he said, "but you've got to protect the present." What amazed everyone was his humor. During his first public appearance after the fire, he joked, "The good news is I finally look like a real mechanic." Beneath the laughs, though, was resilience. The kind that only comes from surviving your own creation. Jay's doctor later said, "He shouldn't have been back in that garage so soon. But I think that place keeps him alive as much as it almost killed him." In the end, Jay's scars became his armor. And though fans wondered if he'd slow down, his answer came in the form of an engine roar echoing across Burbank. The king of cars wasn't done, not by a long shot. When the fire was finally out and the damage assessed, Jay's next project wasn't a new car. It was rebuilding his sanctuary. Crews spent months gutting, cleaning, and restoring the garage to perfection. But this time, Jay made sure it was safer than ever. Every inch of the facility was upgraded. New automatic fuel shutoff systems, CO2 fire suppression, and industrial sensors that could detect even the faintest gas leak. Extinguishers lined the walls like sentinels. He didn't just rebuild, he evolved. Jay insisted the restoration be done the same way he'd fix a car, piece by piece, with care and pride. "A garage," he said, "is like a man's soul. You don't abandon it when it breaks, you rebuild it better." By mid-2023, the doors reopened. Reporters expected a somber ceremony, but instead, Jay arrived behind the wheel of a 1911 Stanley steamer, grinning ear to ear. The crowd erupted. The man who had almost died in a steam car had chosen to drive one back into the spotlight. The new garage gleamed, chrome, concrete, and history reborn. And though scars still marked his face and hands, Jay wore them like medals. "They remind me that passion's supposed to hurt a little," he said. For many, it was just another comeback. But for Jay, it was a resurrection. The fire hadn't ended his story. It reignited it. When police first entered the smoke-filled chaos that November night, they thought they were responding to an accident. But what they found inside Jay Leno's garage wasn't destruction. It was devotion. Scattered among the charred tools and twisted chrome were signs of a man who lived entirely through his craft. Half-finished sketches, a burned journal page with notes for his next episode, and on a nearby workbench, an untouched cup of coffee, still warm. It wasn't just a garage, it was his world. And that night, that world nearly collapsed. Narrator: they didn't find a crime scene. They found the cost of obsession and the heart of a man who never feared the flames. Weeks later, when asked if he ever thought about selling the garage or retiring, Jay just laughed. Retire? From what? Breathing? Today, his hands are scarred but steady, his eyes just as bright. Every burn mark, every repair tells the same story. Passion carries risk, but it's what makes us alive. As he turned the key on one of his restored classics, engines rumbling beneath the glow of new lights, Jay smiled and said, "I guess I'm fire tested now." At 6:32 p.m., the world almost lost Jay Leno. But what they found that night in his garage wasn't tragedy. It was proof that even when everything burns, passion still survives. The echo of resilience, the heartbeat of a legend.